Hi, it's Mary. Tonight I'm painting sunflowers on some old pieces of wood that my daughter-in-law found in her attic. And so I thought maybe everybody out there would want to either find some old piece of wood or go to the hardware store and get a couple of pieces, paint it with some white, sand it a little bit, and make one of these for your garden. And I just wanted to show you how I paint my sunflowers. So I always paint a black spot wherever my center is going to be. And then I use red, and you can see in some of my red where some of the black came out of my foam brush. I always paint with a dirty foam brush when I'm painting sunflowers, because I kind of like how all those different colors and shades kind of come together. So anyways, then with my still dirty brush, I start to load with some yellow, and then I basically just put a layer of yellow on top, and you'll notice the way I paint my sunflowers is I am not intending to cover every bit of my red. I also don't stay in the lines. That's no fun, and if I tried to, I couldn't do it anyways. So I will, after I do red, I do this layer of yellow. Then I will do a layer of yellow after these dry. Because right now some of my red is still a little bit damp, and I kind of like how some of that red pulls through and we get that little bit of blend. So once my yellow dries on all of my sunflowers, I'll do probably another layer of yellow, and then I'll do another layer of yellow with a little bit of white in it just to brighten it up. And then once they dry, I'll do a little splash on top of some other colors, maybe a little bit of scarlet, maybe a little red, a little yellow here and there. I will finish up my centers, and then I will paint some vines and some leaves. So I'll add a little bit more of a video when I get to those different stages so that you can watch and then hopefully paint your own sunflowers. So now 2/3 of my boards have, my sunflowers have a layer of red, a layer of yellow. I let that dry, and they now have a third layer just of yellow. And if you look at the sunflowers at the top of my project, you can see that they're definitely a redder, more orange color. Still beautiful, I think, but you can kind of see down here where they're starting to brighten up and maybe look a little more sunflowerish. So now I'm going to let this dry, and then I'm going to go over top with a layer of yellow and white. But at this point, I did want to show you what I used. I love the Americana paint. It's really my favorite. I paint lots on canvas, some on wood, and to me the Americana is just, for the price, a fantastic product. And then I just always paint on tin foil because I always have foil here at home, and just my foam brush, which when I'm doing a project like this, I like to leave dirty. I don't wash it out. But when you're using real brushes, certainly you can never leave paint in those bristles. They will ruin. So the next video, when I'm painting on canvas, I'll go over some brush care. But for this particular project, this is the point that I'm at. I'm excited for these to dry so that I can start to layer a little bit of the yellow and white together and really start to brighten them up. Okay, so now I'm going to grab a little yellow, grab just a little white. So see how I do just a tiny bit of a blend, and then I'm going to come back over here to my sunflower, I'm just going to put this third layer of paint on my petals. So see, again, I'm not completely covering. I'm gonna load my brush again. Not completely covering up the pretty color that we have started here. So whenever I teach any painting that has flowers kind of like this, I always tell people it's time consuming, and a lot of people will get impatient or bored, I'm not sure which, and they will rush the process. They won't wait to let their flower get a little bit dry, or sometimes don't want to take the time to put lots of layers of color. But I always tell them, if they hang with me, it is worth it. Because really, that's what makes the flowers pretty. And you can tell these flowers started off much smaller. But as I layer color, they get bigger. The more time I paint on something, you know, with all these different colors, all these different layers, as I paint, I tend to get a little bit more bolder and not quite so conservative. I usually start out pretty conservative. But as I paint and just kind of drink my tea and relax, then my art just kind of really starts to take on some personality. So I'm going to pull my phone back, and I am not very good at this, but you can see the difference, and it's still wet and shiny, so you're not really getting a great picture. But then I'm going to compare it to this. So see how with that white and that yellow, those colors are just really starting to pop. It's beautiful. This is so relaxing and fun, and it absolutely never gets old to me. So you'll also notice that in my center, as I'm painting, let me grab a little bit more paint. As I'm painting my petals, I kind of am not really even worrying about my center. I really just place those centers when I start my project so that my eye almost has like a coloring book outline of where my flowers are going to go. The centers will be one of the last things that we finish up on these flowers. It's looking really pretty. I'm excited. Okay. So my paint's still wet. My lighting is not great here in my house when the sun goes down. But you can see now that the bottom 2/3 of these wood pieces, these flowers, have a red layer, a yellow layer, and a yellow-white layer. And I am loving how they are starting to come alive. This one here just had a funky shape, so I just kind of reworked what he looked like. So anyways, that's why you see some of the red leaves, or the red petals kind of in the background. But to me, that's the awesome thing about painting. Like, you can always go with plan B. There's nothing wrong with that. We just kind of figure it out and fix it as we go. And that works well for me. So anyways, that's where we're at now. I am going to let these dry really well. If you keep putting wet paint on top of wet paint, your colors will just start to blend together in kind of like one blah color. But if you let your layers of paint really dry in between, then when you come back on top with some more paint, it stays really vibrant and beautiful. And you can see, I think you can see, I can see in the light that my paint still has a shininess to it. Do you see the shine? When your paint is shiny, it's too wet to paint anymore on top of, so you really just need to be patient, which is hard for me. But just be patient, and then when we go on top with another layer of paint, it'll just continue to build and really pop. And I think we will be really happy with what we end up with. So anyways, that's where I'm at now. Okay, I have thought about these sunflowers all day. When I was at work, I couldn't wait till I would be able to get home and be able to start working on them again. I went to my grandson's talent show. I got home after taking him to McDonald's and got my grass cut, finished that up at like almost 9 o'clock, so I know my neighbors thought I was crazy and I could barely see the grass, but I got it finished. I made some hot tea, and now I'm going to take just a little bit of time to paint before I have to get ready for bed so that I can get up in the morning and do it all again tomorrow. But anyways, I wanted to show you. Now I still haven't done anything else with the top third, just so that I can kind of show you how different they look. So I did another layer of white and yellow, and now I'm starting to work on the centers. And I wanted to show you these flowers. I have a couple here and there that I've tried to just make look like they're kind of pointing or hanging a different direction. We'll shape those up here after I get the centers done. So anyways, this is what I'm doing tonight. So on my tin foil palette, I've got my black for my centers. I'm going to let them dry. Then I'm going to use some brown and some yellow in them just to kind of dry brush on top and give them a little bit of texture. And then you'll notice that I have some scarlet, which right now that's one of my very favorite colors to paint with, and this peacock teal. Both are Americana colors that I absolutely love. And then this color, now last night my base coat for my flowers I used primary red, but tonight when I do a little more detail I have some true red, so that's what this is. In my really bad lighting that looks kind of pink, but it's not. It's kind of like a really, really bright, cheerful, happy red. So I'm just going to continue to work here, and once I get a few more of my flowers closer to being done, I'll go ahead and pick up the video and show you what I'm doing and how I do it. Because really my goal is that you dig out some old piece of wood or some, some old thing that you've picked up and stuck in your garage for a project, and that you watch this and you see how very easy it is, and really just how kind of truly relaxing it is. Even if you're a mom and you're busy and you have very little time for yourself, I mean, really, even if you just take a half hour in the evening after you get everybody kind of settled down, it's just a fantastic way to kind of recharge your own batteries, and that's really important. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and hit pause and keep working, and then I will pick up my phone and show you where I'm at. Okay, so I'm going to show you where I start with my centers. So I've gone over my centers with black with this brush. This is a flat brush that I use all the time. So we have the black there, it's dry. Now I'm going to load a little bit of brown in my brush. I'm going to grab just a tiny bit of yellow. And then I'm just going to kind of do a little bit of a C. I'm not going to completely fill in my center, but I'm just going to make kind of a light brown C in the center. Now when I'm using the flat brush and I'm painting something like sunflowers, especially on this really rough wood, I know that this is just going to be torn up in the process. So I'm going to leave it laying. I'm going to leave some paint in it because I said last night that when I'm using that on the petals of my flowers, I like how some of the other colors that I've used in it kind of squishes out. Now when I finish at night, I do wash this out, and then I stand it up in a cup so that it dries overnight. But you can see that the tip of it's pretty chewed up because of this rough wood. Now when you're using real brushes, you cannot leave paint in them really for any amount of time. So if you are painting and you are going to, let's say, run to the restroom, it's perfectly good and okay to just kind of sit it in some water, run, come right back. Now if you're going to go fold clothes, you would never want to leave your paintbrushes sitting in your water because they will eventually take on the shape of the bottom of the cup, and then your brush will be ruined. Also, if you don't clean your brush out and this paint dries up into this barrel, then your paintbrush is ruined too. So when you clean your paintbrush, a little tinkle tinkle on the top is not what we need. You want to sweep the bottom of your cup so that you really clean that paint out. Then I will kind of tap it on my paper towel. And then when I'm completely done painting, I'll wash it out like this. And then I'll actually take it over to my sink and I clean it really well with some Murphy's oil soap. And then I rinse it. And then I reshape it with Murphy's oil soap. And then I stand it up and let it dry like that. So really, when you paint, your money will not be in your canvases. It won't be in your paint. Your money will be in your brushes. And I typically don't buy the cheapest brush, and I also don't buy the most expensive brush. You can get nice brushes from Michael's or Hobby Lobby or online. Really, if you go middle of the road, you'll end up with some decent brushes. And as long as you clean them well, they will last you forever. I have a few brushes that are almost 30 years old, and you know, if you take care of them, they really will last you. So that's the little how to take care of your brush talk I give all my classes. The poor people that paint with me over and over, I know they probably get tired of hearing me, but it's so important to take care of your brushes. So now that I have put some brown into the center of my flower and I've cleaned my flat brush, I'm going to pick up what I call a dry brush from my ceramic days. And you can see it's just really scruffy. It's designed to take a lot of punishment. So I'm just going to grab, and you notice I don't like in the center of my paint. I'm just going to kind of grab some here at the edge. I'm going to kind of tap it out because I don't want a whole bunch of messy paint on the tip. I just want a little bit here. Now, I have not wet this brush, so we're going to kind of let's see how this works. And I don't have enough paint. Grab a little bit more. And that's really a brighter yellow than what I want. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to load my brush with a little bit of brown. And I'm going to see if I can get this looking more like what I'm seeing in my head. Okay, yeah, I like that. So I'm going to do that on the rest of my centers, and then I will pick my phone back up and show you what I'm going to do next. Okay, I am putting on some finishing touches, and really this part of, when I get to this part of my paintings, I really just call it kind of playing with color. So you'll see that I have just started to, once I had really several layers of paint on my flowers, I kind of just kept adding layers of paint until till they just made me feel happy, I guess. You just kind of keep playing until you go, you know, I really like what that looks like. And I am then adding just little sparks of color here and there. You can see they all look a little bit different. I'll tell you what you want to avoid when you're doing this step, and maybe you're going to start to kind of swipe in some of the red. I swiped here. You want to avoid the tendency to want to then swipe that red all the way around in the exact same spot. You also want to avoid like putting color into your flower petals in exactly the same spot. You just kind of want to go to each new flower and do something totally different and totally random. And it really is, when you start painting, it's surprising how difficult it is to paint in a manner that just looks random and organic and natural. When I very first start painting any project, it's a little more forced, a little more conservative, but then you just kind of like get into this happy place where your creativity just really starts to flow. And often I will have people say, I'm not creative, I can't draw a stick person. But I think God is like the master creator. I look outside at creation and it just blows my mind. And I know He put some of that into all of us. So I believe everybody has creativity in them. So I really, really hope that everybody will give it a try. Paint on a small canvas, try one of these flowers. I am going to show you here. You can see I took my flat brush and I did my stem and I did a little bit of a leaf. I'm going to show you really quick. Let me grab a little bit more of this festive green. I've got some black here and I'm going to start with black. Now when I load my flat brush, I don't in the center of my puddle and get like a really messy tip. When I load my brush, I kind of pull paint out, I flip my brush around, so that way I still end up with a nice sharp tip. I always tell my classes, if you look at the tip of your brush and it's thick and messy and full of paint, that's what you're going to get when you touch your project. So if you want something a little nicer, this is a great way to get a nice sharp line. So now I'm just going to kind of decide, and there's no right or wrong, where my stem is going to come down. And I'm going to grab a little more paint, because if these great big sunflowers don't have a little more of a substantial stem, we know that they would fall right over. Does not have to be perfect by any means. And the other thing too, I know I can hear some of you out there saying, I don't know, putting teal into a sunflower and that red, it just looks odd to me. Up here are some that I haven't gotten to yet. And really, I think it would be very pretty even if you just left your flowers like this. But I also think it's okay to get a little bit more creative, because there are fantastic cameras out there, wonderful photographers, pretty cheap prints that you could buy. So if what I wanted was an actual photograph of a sunflower, I would just buy it. But really the fun and the adventure here for me is to just kind of paint it myself and be creative with it. These are flowers that are growing in my imaginary garden. So really, they can have whatever color I want them to have. So when this dries just a tiny bit, it's pretty wet, then I'm going to, of course I'm going to clean my brush, but then I'm going to load a little bit of yellow, and see how I've just put a little bit of yellow into my stem. Just kind of highlights it in a pretty way. I wasn't sure that I would like these flowers that I kind of tried to paint kind of, you know, hanging over, like they've gotten too heavy and they're kind of hanging over. But I think they're okay. We could certainly paint them a little differently if we were painting on a different kind of surface. But with this really rough, actually, look how gross, still kind of dirty wood, I think it's turned out really well. When I look at these flowers, they make me happy, and that's the whole point of this. So I am going to clean my brush here really quick. And then I'm going to grab these scruffy dry brushes, and I'm going to finish this center like I finished these, so that you can kind of see what I did. Because it's getting so pretty outside, I want to get this up so that everybody who wants to try it can maybe go find a piece of wood and try some flowers. So I have my black center, and you can see I had tried a different shape with this and I just did not like it. So that's another beautiful thing about the painting is if something happens on here and you just go, oh, that's too much blue, or I don't like the shape of this top, just let it dry completely and then just paint over it. Plan B. There's nothing wrong with it. So again, remember these scruffy brushes I'm using dry. I have not put them in the water this evening since I started painting. And then because this is really pretty dry, see, I can touch it, really not get much paint. Now I'm going to grab just a little bit of teal, and again, you know, only do this if you like it, if it sparks joy in you. And I just kind of like that little bit of teal in my center. Just gives it another little cheerful pop to me. And you could just put a little here and there. You don't have to put it everywhere. So I'm going to throw those scruffy brushes into my dirty cup of water. So that's really the way I'm going to finish out. And you can see these are like 3 separate, totally separate pieces of wood. They're probably maybe about 5 foot or so. And I'll just take mine and stand it up somewhere outside in one of my flower beds. And it'll just be pretty and cheerful. But anyways, I'm going to post it. It's my first video. I've taught a lot of canvas classes, just different things that I have painted. But I have never put any tutorials online. I myself watch a ton of them. They're just relaxing and fun, and you just learn new ideas. So I decided I would go ahead, and as I paint and create new things, I'll put new videos up. So this has been fun. I hope you guys all try it. Have a great evening.